Well, hello, good evening. Happy Tuesday to everyone. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in and joining me tonight. Um, it's always a pleasure to be for all of you. And I want to thank you guys for being here. You're tuned in to the Gloria Bailey Ray Show, formerly the You Didn't Get the Memo Show. And we are in the process of rebranding ourselves and doing something different, but we are still continuing to bring to you relevant, fact based, mainstream information to help you be informed and to make informed decisions. I want to remind all of you, if you're new to joining the show, this is an interactive show. And what I mean by that, you're able to ask questions, and if you place them in the comments section, I'll do my very best to respond to you and get back to you. Okay. We're going to have a guest joining us a little later on, and Dr. Ron has been on this show before, and he was live. That's the way to say it. He keeps it real. He's very authentic. And I'm certain that you guys are going to enjoy the dialogue with him. So, whatever you do, make sure you stay tuned and don't go anywhere. But again, my name is Gloria Bailey Ray. I'm your host and producer of the Gloria Bailey Ray Show. And it is a pleasure to be here with you. Want to start off by tackling, and this is one of the things we're doing different, is tackling a topic that it seems that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And that topic is racism. And I think I titled tonight's show as The Real Pandemic, and that being Black. And anywhere you go, wherever you are, I need you guys to be real, to show up, to be your authentic self, and let's talk about this issue. And it's something that has been going on and been around for years, but it still seems to conjure up, and a lot of people still squirm and they don't want to talk about it. And so I wanted to start. So let's just start with when we talk about racism. What is racism? What is it defined as? And if I think about racism, it really and truly is belief that one racial group is superior to or better than another racial group. And what I find interesting is I was doing research and I'm thinking about this. What came to mind is that the Bible tells us that God created us all in his image. And so for those of you who are really believers, I have to ask the question, what is it that has happened that has made one group of people think that they are superior to Black people? And yes, this is Black History Month, and there are a lot of things that have been going on. I was reading in the news where this elementary school had received this social media text around wishing all the Black people, they had all their pictures up and their names, and wishing them, happy Black History Month. And they called them all monkeys. And y'all, we got to get a handle on this. We are in a situation where you've got governors that should be governing, And we've got politicians that are concerned with, we don't want to teach and talk about what happened. We don't want to talk about slavery. We don't, basically, we want to erase Black Americans. And I'm going to say this to each and every one of you that has an ounce of Black blood in you. And quite frankly, if you really, it really did the DNA, you find out there are more of you who do than don't. Let me just say to you, this is serious. It's a serious issue. It should be of grave concern. And I don't see people really out there marching and talking about, why aren't we teaching Black history in schools? Why aren't, I mean, even on a college level, something that's an elective class, and people are against it. And my thing is, if you aren't part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And one another thing that came up for me was, I would love to do a poll, and I really couldn't find any more recent studies that has been done that really looks at the number of white people that have Black friends. And y'all, I'm not talking about the one person in the office where you say, oh yeah, I got a Black friend, and it's that one person. But when I ask, have they ever been to your home? Have you ever been to their home? Have you ever sat down and prepared a meal together, shared a meal? Not out at a restaurant. I'm literally talking about at somebody's house. And so when I hear people say that they do have Black friends, but it's like it only goes so far. Now, again, let me just say, these views that are being shared, they are only my personal views, and it is not to put anyone on edge or to make you feel uncomfortable. But what I do want you to understand is that we've got grave concerns when you've got children in grade school, second, third grade, and you realize that a child is half Black and half white. And yeah, I cringed at the young lady who's six or seven, and she tells me how her classmates treat her, and because they see her as different. She's different. She's beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful. And of course, you can tell a child all day long they're jealous. But what does that really mean? Jealous of what? And so there's so much, our culture is so rich. There's so much that we need to be talking about, but yet no discussion. You can tell me about how you social engineering and doing all these things all day long. It means nothing if you're not standing up and talking about who you are, where you come from, what you are about. Means absolutely nothing. And you have a lot of people that say, I'm an influencer, I'm this. Well, influence this. Influence the school boards to start teaching your children or your grandchildren or your great grandchildren about where they came from. Influence this. Talk about it in your family. Influence this. Don't be afraid to answer those questions when people are asking you, because sometimes you don't know it all. All I know is my historical perspective, being raised in the South and what I experienced. But I also know that there's still a lot of racism that exists right here. And I'm in California. So let's not make a mistake and think that it's only in the South or the deep South. It's not. It's everywhere. So again, the question being is, it really and truly, it really is a question. Is the real pandemic about being Black in America? How do we treat one another? How do we show up? And I find it really interesting that you have people who say, I don't want to lose my funding, so I'm not going to step up and stand out or stand on this issue. I have people who are saying, well, I work mainly with white people, and so, I don't want to cause any anxiety. Well, I just say, well, damn, at what point do you get to, because you have reap the benefits of what all of our forefathers, foremothers have done. They have been beaten, they have been raped, they have been robbed of their land, of their rights, and under the auspice of eminent domain. Let's be real, people. What are we really talking about? And some of you are so busy wanting to dress up and play dress up and do all of the things that really will makes no difference at the end of the day, because people will still see you the way they see you. So when we talk about, and again, I beg the question, is are we really and truly looking at the real pandemic of being Black in America? Because on every level, you see and experience what is happening, what's going on. So it concerns me. And with this being Black History Month, and I don't know about you, but some of you go all out for the month of February. You know, you represent. But what are you doing the other 11 months? To me, Black history is 365, 7 days a week. It doesn't just stop with someone who's decided to give us the shortest month in the calendar year to celebrate Black history, right? And so I just for me, again, I say I come from a different perspective and background, and stop to think about, what does this really mean? Where are we going? Where are we headed? Do you really think that you've arrived? Really? I mean, I think about Breonna Taylor. I think about uh, Ahmaud Arbery. Um, what was the gentleman's name? The cop, Dante. Uh, these people, really and truly, it's like you kill while driving Black or being Black. Y'all, aren't you tired? Aren't you guys tired of that narrative? I just asked the question, are you tired? It would seem that if you're really tired, you have to go where you can really make a difference. For those of you who don't vote, for those of you who are letting your tax dollars being used for everything else, and we see all kind of things that are happening. Let's be real, y'all. I mean, it's happening right here. You're going to put a chief of police on administrative leave for two infractions that you say that he didn't handle. The infractions were caused by the same person. Who does that? If you're on a job, I mean, at least you get a written warning, you get a write up, you get something. But we're basically going to just get rid of you, and y'all should be concerned. I'm just saying. Yeah, I hear you. I'm responding. If you guys see me, I'm reading comments from my viewers, and one comment is that many people think that racism won't ever touch them, and I'm telling you, it's alive and well in every single aspect and fabric of the American culture. No one has stopped to ask the question: how is it that we can look at how a city can just become gentrified, and we give help to other ethnicities, not saying that they don't need it, but I am saying you're going to take care of someone that's not even at home in your own backyard before you take care of other people. That should be a concern. But you're not talking to the politicians. You're not, raising, and again, not saying all of you. I'm not painting everyone with the same paintbrush. But this is for those of you who are not. You don't feel that you have a right to reach out and call your city council. You don't have the right to reach out and call your supervisor. You don't feel like you have the right to reach out and call your mayor. And I'm not just talking about calling, show up. but everybody's so busy. You're so damn busy until what ends up happening, until it affects you, until it hits you. That's when you show up. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You got to show up for those who really can't afford and don't have the wherewithal to show up for themselves. That's the ticket. That's the ticket. And many of you feel like that you've made it. Oh, I've got this cushy job. I'm doing this. I'm telling you, no, you're not. No, you're not. Because if you had this cushy job and you've been on it for 15, 20 years, I don't see you signing any checks. I don't see your name on the moniker as a VP, as a president, as a company owner. It's so far and few in between. And those of you that are, again, let's just talk about driving that narrative so that our black and brown kids can get educated. Our black and brown kids, the worst thing that happened, in my opinion, why I refer to it as the pandemic, is when the pandemic happened. Think about what happened in the public schools. And I'm sure it was around the country, but I can speak for here in Oakland, in California, in Oakland alone. Kids didn't have computers. They don't have internet access. How can you live in one of the richest, diverse communities, city, state, and know that these things exist? However, what I found out is children that were in private school, Catholic school, private school, church, guess what? They had computers, they had internet. So they didn't miss a beat. All during this pandemic, while they were out of school, they didn't miss a beat. Parents, you have a responsibility. And I'm at the point where when I hear people say, I don't want to talk about what happened. I don't want to talk about racism. I don't want to talk about, well, you don't want to talk about it until something happens. And then you want to run to the NAACP or hire a lawyer to help you. It's about being informed too. It's about knowing your rights. It's about knowing what you need to do. And that's why I say it's a tragedy. When we think about and talk about the pandemic, the worst, to me, the worst thing that happened was that we realized, and it just all came out. Black people not prepared. We really aren't prepared. Again, not all of you, because I can see some of you right now getting ticked off. But I want you to think about, because you know something, did you share what you knew with somebody else? Did you try to bring somebody else up? That becomes the ticket. But demanding, because you can afford to send your kids to private school. So you don't feel that you have a responsibility to ensure that the kids in public school are getting a great education, not just a so-so or good, but a great education. And I've never understood how you can pay tax dollars for public schools, but yet you're going to spend 15, 20, $25,000 a year for your kids to go to private school. And it's like, okay, I'm basically I'm inoculated against whatever they're doing in public school because my kids don't have that. And as much as we want to think it doesn't exist, just here recently in one very affluent neighborhood in Northern California in the school, and here's a kid um, at a basketball game using terrible derogatory words towards a black basketball player. Come on, it's real, y'all. And the thing is, if you aren't teaching about racism, if you aren't teaching your children to understand the history, then what they are learning is from you. And what they are learning, and they think it's okay. It's not okay. And that goes for all of y'all with biracial kids too. Let me not leave you out. You need to be teaching your children about their history, who they are, where they come from. It's important. Make no mistake about it. So again, I come back to thinking when it comes down to racism, the question that I want to ask all of you is why is talking about race such a sensitive topic? Chime in, put your comments and let me hear from you. Why is it that talking about race is such a sensitive topic? And the second part of that, who is it the sensitive topic, or I guess the word I want to phrase is, and who is it that it's sensitive to? So, okay, corporate America calls that freedom of speech. Which part of freedom of speech are we talking about? Because they can do what? Those are the things, y'all, we got to think about. We need to be talking about it. We need to know. We're talking about the pandemic, the real pandemic, racism. It's really and truly about what's happening here in America, what's happening with our country. I've had numerous people, conversations with folks. How can they send so much money to Ukraine? How can they send so much money to Afghanistan? How? Well, there's that other political piece, and that's where it comes in, where you're writing and calling, you know, the people who are representing you and asking them to help you understand. Could it be that they are the country that's between the U.S. and let's say Russia that they're fighting, and they want to be that buffer? Whatever it is, there are myriad of reasons, but you need to know, and you need to ask questions, and you need to get answers, and those are the things. And y'all, corporate America, I'm telling you, I still see the same thing over and over and over. And everybody makes a big deal about this. And I just want to ask this question: when will the day come where it's not so much that it's such newsworthy that the news stations have to carry it for 2 weeks? The first black woman, or the first black man, or the first, and it's almost like, to me, it takes away from what you bring to the table. If you peel off and didn't look at color, how about, this is the first individual that came with a plan that da 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 da, but instead we're still lifting that narrative. And I'm just curious. I'm curious. I'm certain some of you are too. I read a lot of your comments on social media about different things. So when we talk about what is really happening, is the pandemic. Is the pandemic really the real pandemic? Was it COVID, or is the real pandemic about Black people, Black Americans? Because let's look at how many Black Americans died from COVID, right? And so this is why I'm bringing this up. I see one of my viewers said, watching the 1619 project, very informative. Thank you so much for that. Absolutely. Um, there are a number of ways to get information, but at the same time, we got to be willing to share it. We got to be willing to talk about it. We got to be willing to. I was reading a post from my guest that's coming on later on, and one of his posts was showing white guys holding a rebel flag. And he says, don't forget, this was, you know, Black history as well. And I see where he's coming from. We lived through that. We're still living through it. There's still places in the South. I just had an experience yesterday. Yesterday, we basically had no electricity. They were working on the line, so everyone in our neighborhood had power out. And no knowledge, and I walk up to the guy, and the guy who was trying to call one of the supervisors was Hispanic. And when he said, excuse me, sir, and the guy answers him in I mean, such a negative way, yeah, what's and I said, well, excuse me, and he said the same thing to me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you're not going to address me like that. We start off with, first of all, saying good morning and asked me, how can you help me? And he said, oh, I'm sorry, I was talking to him. I said, but he still didn't deserve to be talked like that, spoken to like that. And the thing is that at the same time, um, it was just something about him. He had a twang. And I said, where are you from? And he said, Alabama. I said, well, that explains that right there. And again, painting him with that brush, but because of my historical perspective and interactions in those cases, you know, that was one of the things that just stood out for me. And he did apologize. But I'm just saying, y'all, at what point do we just continue to take and take? I see there's another comment. You said normally, I guess people don't want to discuss racism is because it's requiring Caucasians to look into their family trees and have come to the realization that granddad got rich off his slaves. Well, I mean, we know that to be a fact. All we have to do is look as far as what happened down in Southern California with the beach property that had been taken and is now being restored to the family. But look at how many years, and still they did not get anything what it was worth, right? $75 million, but they got 25 million, I think it was something like that. And so it's the woman who is in El Dorado County, and through eminent domain, what ended up happening, they took this land because the river ran through it. It was a black town. They were thriving. And y'all, it's stories like this, but you need to talk to your children, your families, and talk about it. Because you didn't just get here because all of a sudden you showed up, but you need to know you stood on the shoulders and backs of others who went before you, others who sacrificed for you. And how dare you? Some of y'all right now losing grandma and grandpa's home or mom and dad's home because somebody came up and said, I'll give you $100,000 for it. And not even realizing what you have and even understanding the historical piece that is involved in it. That in itself says so much. And for you to just give away what your parents and your grandparents have worked so hard for, that is actually worth more than you even know. And rather than asking someone, several people, you need to get more than one opinion, asking them about it. We don't do those things. And that should cause you grave concern. Your parents, your grandparents, the reason why they worked so darn hard for you to have something, because they wanted to leave a legacy. You should carry that legacy on. But you know what I hear most people say now, black folks, I ain't leaving nothing for my kids. I'm going to spend it all. I'm not going to do that. Well, you know, times are different. Times are different. You're not buying no house no more for $25 or even 50 or 100, and depending on where you are. And so I'm just saying, y'all, it's time for us to get real. We're talking about the real pandemic, being black in America. And on both sides, we have to understand. I had a conversation. You know, I'm a coach, life coach, and someone had called me, and we were having a discussion, and rightfully so. She was distraught in terms of how this white male who is beneath her and reports to her had overrode what she had said. And she's head of the department, a VP. And her boss sided with him. And it becomes this whole thing. Oh, you're the angry black woman. Y'all, we need to get rid of, you need to wash your mouth out. You need to gargle. You need to floss and get rid of that. Because the thing is, when someone doesn't understand your history, when someone doesn't understand your culture, it's like me having a white woman say, "What's up, girlfriend?" I'm like, I'm sorry. What's up, girlfriend? Listen, I'm just saying there are certain things you need to stop in the track, and you don't have to be mean and negative about it. But what you must do is that you must either stop it or it will continue. And so when people calling you hun, yeah, girl, yeah, yeah, I'm just saying. I just ask people, can you put a handle on my name? Because I'm not your honey. I'm not your girl. I'm not your girlfriend. None of that. And I know that in certain parts of the country, it's become accepted, but it's accepted because you've allowed it to be accepted. You've earned the right. What do I look like calling a 60, 70, 80-year-old woman and calling her, what's up, girlfriend? Or it just doesn't work like that. And so I I I wanted to talk about this. I know that there are probably other shows and people are talking about it, but we have the ability to be able to talk about it now and to really delve into it. And I see some of your comments. Those stories happen all over the South and other places. If we have it, they want it for nothing. Yeah. And it has become the attitude that it's my birthright. Well, it's our birthright too. And you guys, I'm just saying, to Black Americans, you got to stand up and understand that. And for those of you who have um married and you have these biracial kids, you need to teach them, because let me just tell you, if you studied any part of chemistry, anatomy and physiology, all of these things, listen, your DNA. You ever notice how a kid can show up and they got blue eyes, and you trying to figure out where they come from? For a long time growing up, I have green eyes. I have a son with green eyes and a daughter with blue eyes. Their father is black. But guess what? My grandfather, guess what? White. Somebody in the woodpile. Now he was black, but he had blonde hair, blue eyes. And so somebody else was in that woodpile. Let's be real. So make no mistake about it. You may marry somebody white, and when one of those babies come out chocolate, you want to say that they had an affair. You need to understand what you're dealing with and know your history. And so for me, I just want to keep it real, which I always do. I see another viewer says, all right, I love it. We got ATL. We got a lot of folks in the house tonight. We don't understand how rich our history is. I agree with that. We refuse to acknowledge how strong our ancestors were. Who say it again, to endure the circumstances they went through. Absolutely. And this is why I'm talking about this now. And I know Dr. Ron's going to shed a whole nother level to this when he joins us roughly in about 10 more minutes. But wanted to just get you guys to, let's start having this dialogue. Let's start talking about, what is happening as it relates to race relations here in America. What's happening to Black Americans? And let me just say to some of you who just feel like, I'm just going to live off of Uncle Sam. Listen, your mom, dad, grandmother, grandfather, great grandmother, great grandfather, they knew what it was like to work. And there's a certain sense of ownership when you work and earn, your way. When you sit around and think that everybody's supposed to give you something, and again, let's not take it out of context. I'm talking on this on a macro level, but we need to understand that when you just continue to take and take and take, perfect example, stimulus payments were for, really one thing only. But then when they did two stimulus payments, and then they did three stimulus payments, and what happened, people started saying, well, I need another stimulus payment. I need another stimulus payment. I need, and yet and maybe it was just for fun. I don't know. I guess I don't joke about those things. But when you're saying, I need a stimulus payment to go get my weave done, I need a stimulus payment to go get my nails done, I need a stimulus payment to go get my eyelashes done, y'all. I'm just saying, and believe me, Big Brother's watching and looking at all of that, and they understand more than we think they do of what drives us and why we do what we do. So, again, I just say the real pandemic is it being black in America. Again, to all of you who feel like that you've made it and you haven't reached out. See, and making it isn't just making a donation or saying, oh, I did this. Some of you are doing great things, but nobody knows about it. And the thing is, you're asking for different things, but you know, we really want to know. Even right now, y'all, those of you who have been graduates of HBCUs, those of you that are in attendance, you know, it used to be a time you couldn't get white people to come to HBCUs. Now what they do is they come and they pluck off your brightest. And what you don't understand, look, I'm about to give you a plug for my book. What you don't understand, you didn't get the memo because you didn't know how to navigate corporate America. You didn't really understand what your rights were. And so you took this job, they dangled that carrot and said, we're going to give you six figures. But at the same time, again, not all, but a lot of you have found yourselves, you know, what they say, not having a pot to pee in and a window to pour it out of. Look, that's an old Southern saying. Y'all will get that later on. So, let me ask this question. Should we be teaching our kids about racism and its negative effect on people of color? Yes or no? Chime in. Come on, talk to me. That's a question. Should we teach our children about racism and its negative effect on people of color? What do you say? Some of you that are school teachers, I'd like to hear what you have to say. Some of you that are, you are, psychologists, psychiatrists. I'm trying to see who's all on here. What do you think? Let's talk about it. Because racism um, is basically, we're talking about this one group that basically it feels like that they have this power over you. It's this, I think people call it systemic discrimination, and that's what we're talking about. So do you want your children, your grandchildren, to be taught about racism, or are you like a lot of people say, oh, that was back then and it doesn't exist, it doesn't matter, and so I don't want my kids to know about it? Anybody like that online listening? Oh, by the way, let me give a shout out. I see that I have some new followers from the motherland. Thank you guys so much for following me and for being here with me. I really, really appreciate you. I really and truly do. So, ask that, I'm asking this question. What do you guys think? You need time to think it over, you know? And here's the thing. Do you think that your kids know about racism even though you aren't talking about it in the home? Okay, so let's see. Um, you feel that yes, that they should teach them about racism, and if they will not let them, I feel that they should sue the powers that be. All right, all right. Um, you know, uh, so true about the working statement. Absolutely should teach our kids about the landmines of racism, and there are a lot of them out there. And one of the things that I hear people saying is, I've been here for 15 years, 20 years, and oh, I just decided, to leave my job. Well, if it was working for you, why leave it? And then why not aspire to those next level? Is it because you didn't think that you could join in, or what? Y'all, so hang tight. Let me bring in Ron.
Hey, good night. Good
How
night.
you doing, Dr. Ron? How are you?
Everything is good. Fantastic. How you
All
doing?
right. Awesome. Well, I'm happy that you could join us. I had just posed a question. Should we teach our kids about racism and its negative effect on people of color?
Mm,
And we've got some comments. People said, true. We need to teach our kids about the landmines of racism. Um, Definitely, because how will they be able to recognize racism if we do not make them aware of it? And another viewer says, I think we have to talk about racism. If we do not, we're doomed to repeat the past. And I've just been kind of going through, I share with you that my topic tonight was the real pandemic, which is, being Black.
mm,
That's the real pandemic. And what I meant by that is that there's so much that's going on. When you look at what's happening in Florida with Ron DeSantis, when you look at what's happening. I'm just saying, these are things that are showing up, and I think that it's really important that we really and truly need to examine this dialogue and to talk with people, our children, and have that. Otherwise, one of the things that happens is a lot of our Blacks that come from HBCUs, of course, they're recruited by some of the largest white companies and corporations, and they feel like they've arrived. And then they get into corporate America and they don't know the rules. They
mm.
don't know the landmines. They don't know what's happening. And a lot of things that we tend as Black people to slide, you know, and then all of a sudden one day it hits you. I didn't like the way he said boy to me. I didn't like the way you said, hey, what's up, sis? From, I'm just saying, and I know a lot of people feel like, oh, I just feel like I know you, but you don't know me. And so you don't get to call me sis. You don't get
Yes.
to call me hun. You know what I'm saying? And I know you understand that. I mean, I was like, I just want Ron DeSantis to govern, not try to manage what's happening as it relates to the curriculum. And look, we're talking about an AP class. It's not like they're pushing it down their throat. So I'm going to let you take the hymn because I know you got a lot to a lot to say,
Well,
and I want to hear from.
let's start with the title of your show. I think that
Okay,
it is very important if you need to use the pandemic that people have just got out of and thought that was the most tragic thing that has happened to them. I think for Black people to recognize that they have been in a pandemic since they landed on this rock that they were
amen,
on. And
amen.
many of us delusion ourselves
Hmm.
to believe that we're not. I'll give you an example of this is that one of the major things I do in intake when I begin to see clients, and obviously the majority of my clients will then have to be of the Black American diaspora, as I would say. When I speak to them, I tell them that I know you're coming here for some issues, some mental health concerns, or maybe you're just coming to resolve an issue or talk about a topic. But one of the first things I end up doing is telling them that we have to deal with the initial thing. No matter if you came in here and you said you had nothing wrong, we have to talk about what the number one issue that you would be having is being Black in America and how every bit of being Black in America affects you every day.
Yeah.
It affects you when you wake up. It affects everything that you do. It affects your own. It affects your self esteem. It affects your self worth. It affects how you display yourself, how you speak, your language. Everything
Hmm.
you do is managed by that. Then you add in a thing that you might be dealing with some bipolar issues, but it may not even be bipolar because so that's a big thing that I do a big thing of. May not be bipolar. It may be that if we learned that a lot of mental health issues are related in the context of what people have socially constructed for you. And if
Yes.
you understand the social construction of what most Black people have socially been constructed, we have not been constructed to be our own individuals. We have been constructed to be someone's property for
Hmm.
to enjoy us, but not for us to enjoy ourselves.
Right.
And so
Right.
That's the first. This is so important and it is so forward thinking to say, hey, let's have a topic to really talk about it because it brings us back, and we probably could forget about those things and not even think about critical race theory objectors, Ron DeSantis, and this foolishness that he is. We probably could forget about it, but we can't because here is something reminding us of this crucial thing. This is again. People say this is Black History Month. Me, I celebrate American History Month every day because America would not be America without Black people. So
Amen.
every day, 365, I celebrate not Black History, but American History Month, and that is inclusive of everything. That if you go and check your favorite thing that you like, a Black person had a hand in creating it.
Yes, come on now.
So that's that. So we like to do this thing and give us this. Oh, get these crumbs over here. Well, America. If you had to say who's more American than anybody else, outside of the people who were here before we got here, and that would be the indigenous people who also was some of us because we came to this country as Africans way before any Europeans even knew how to even write it or organize or function a boat. So we was already traveling over here. So we was already establishing whatever indigenous people was in this continent, on the continent. We were already socialized with them and already establishing families and developing who we were with them. To just think about by the time we got here, everything from beyond that is more of us than anything else, anybody else.
Right.
And people don't see that. And people, and I tell a lot of us that be very proud. Listen, be very proud because guess what? Yeah. There is not very many people who could have survived and thrived the way we have in these situations. Okay, I don't listen. I better not
what.
Let me try to find a way to say it, and I don't want to get your show banned or anything. You get any warning signs, but there's always this oppressive Olympics between us at some point and people, the Jewish population. And it was just in the movie they had black, like Eddie Murphy movie, You People. I think it's You People or something. Eddie Murphy movie. I thought about how they played that in the whole comedy thing. And it's not it's not a comedy. Yes, what happened to Jewish people was horrible. It should not have happened to them. And guess what? It didn't happen another issue that makes it so important that Americans care to share it because it didn't happen in America. So it's no problem to talk about it because guess what? You don't have to be the villain. There's a villain called the German people, not just Hitler, because Hitler didn't go and do that by himself. The German people are the villains in that. So if we can acknowledge and know that if you say anything against that, you are anti-Semitic, why is it that you can't acknowledge the villains who oppressed the people who they brought to this country and didn't even treat them like humans? Matter of fact, if you want a better example, this Constitution that we live by. Right. If anybody ever said, "Oh, America's not racist," listen, the Constitution is written to affect the idea that it was founded on racist principles.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Let's put a pin in this. The fact that the Jews still acknowledge the Holocaust, right? Mm-hmm. But Black people don't want to acknowledge. How can you be excited about Black history and Juneteenth when hell, what happens all the other? I'm just saying.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't understand how anybody but the people who were affected by Juneteenth could even think about celebrating Juneteenth. Because when you really you obviously the average people celebrating it don't even understand what Juneteenth means. Exactly. Juneteenth means that these people were screwed over and never told the truth that they were free and allowed to go and they could take. This is the ironic issue that we have and we face when we're looking at these issues in America and how
Right.
somehow we just want to do like this with every topic that is done. You're ready to have a celebration for Juneteenth and make it so you wouldn't celebrate. Let me tell you something. You wouldn't celebrate Jewish people getting on a train. So
Right.
why would you celebrate the idea of Juneteenth that because we celebrated it, you say it's okay to celebrate? You should not be able to celebrate it because it's not something to celebrate.
Right.
When
Yeah.
celebrating Juneteenth, it wasn't about celebrating. It was about understanding and really the only way we know how to do things as a people is instead of going to a funeral, having a celebration. It
Mm-hmm.
was still a death. The
Right.
death of the idea that we was free so many years prior to this, and you take yourself and kept us in bondage
Mm-hmm.
for somebody to come one day, someday the army come and say, why do you people around here still enslaved? Slavery over.
Mm-hmm. And still, how they ended up leaving them. It wasn't like they gave them 40 acres and a mule. It wasn't like that. I mean, I'm just saying, let's just call it what we see it. And so, as a result, that's why I said the real pandemic. The real pandemic. It started long before COVID in 2019, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? The real pandemic is racism. It's being black in America, and that's what we don't talk about. We're still pushing it on the rug. We still, and it just gets me when I look at companies. And I said earlier before you came on, I said, black people are all up excited. I got a great job, and I was there for 10 or 15 years. But what ended up happening, what they don't tell you is they started putting the screws to you to move you out, right? And the reality, not all, and like I said, I'm not saying all, but my thing is, so you didn't see the ladder
I'm
where you
sorry.
could move up.
Gloria, let me say something. You said not all. Who is not all?
Well, look, I'm saying the
I just want to know. I listen. I'm not. I'm just asking you a question.
no.
Who is not who?
When I say
Not
not
all.
all,
Who? Not all
not
white
all.
people.
No, oh no, no, no. I'm talking about not all black people, because there
Oh,
are
okay,
some
okay,
black people
okay.
that have aspired and reached that pinnacle of being a VP of a company, being a president of a company. But if we look at the majority, I had made a comment, is like, when do we get past? Everybody celebrate. Oh, she's the first black coach. She's the first. Well, she's the
Those,
first
listen,
black
those
this.
people are not those. Not they're not. And they're not. These people are not the first black anything because when we were segregated and not involved in your environment in your white world, and we weren't established in your white world, we was creating those things. Listen, if you want to
Thank
be, if you want proof, go to Oklahoma and
you.
travel the state of Oklahoma and
Oh yeah.
see all of the cities that are still black cities today.
Hmm.
Go there and see that they had more. They had their own mayor. They had, this is the first. Listen, it's the first in the white America, but in
Right.
our own black America that we had, we're
Right.
not the first. You. It's like one of these things to give you a bone. Oh, you a bone because you the first. The first what? I'm the first compared to you because there is no first in your. There is no first white person because you always been the first person to do everything,
Right.
right?
Right. And
Right.
that's exactly what I'm talking about. And so when I hear people say, I'm the first black female mayor or the first black, and I'm like, y'all need to stop that. I mean, you playing this narrative, the first black what, and just what you said. And again, that goes back to understanding history. It goes back to knowing, you know what, we had black towns, period. Blacksmith, black grocery stores, black laundromat, black, all these things. And so when I hear that, and I see people and they're celebrating, and although let me just say I understand somewhat why they feel like that, but honestly, inside I'm cringing because I'm like, well, no, because if you really knew, probably your great grandfather, great 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 grandfather, grandmother actually owned, ran, had all this. But again, what's the word that the government uses? Eminent domain. We're gonna come in and we're gonna take it over. It just
Absolutely.
so happens that you just found all this gold on it. And that
Absolutely.
the riverfront that runs through, we need the water so that we can ship the goods down. And
Absolutely.
so understanding that part of it, and our people are still, and I'm just saying there, okay, so happy,
I'm gonna give you, here's a great example.
what?
There's a lot of people that love this show called Yellowstone. Yellowstone.
Yellowstone.
Is that the name of it?
Yellowstone is the
And,
name of the show.
and the reason why people love the show so much is the idea of this man's land and all he's doing to stop anybody. I just want the ironicness of the large majority of black people I know who watch this show, right?
Right,
And at no point have they ever thought about looking at it in reference to themselves, right?
right,
Because we
right.
don't see ourselves in it because they don't have very many black characters in
Mm-hmm.
most of the. They never had no black characters. I mean, then they had the prequel shows, 1883, 1923, and so you have this, and even in these times of some of the stuff, I watched some of this, and I
Mm-hmm.
said to myself, history is a bad mamma jamma. And
Yes.
this is why we get into the idea of I do not want anyone to learn critical race theory stuff. I do not want AP African American history to be taught in anywhere, because once that happens,
Right.
I'm going to have to acknowledge that I was the villain. The villain was Hitler and the German people, the
Mm-hmm.
Nazi Party. So then you would have to acknowledge that. Not and listen, I know people will say I didn't own slaves or I didn't do this,
Right.
but again, the one thing I do know is that you benefited from the idea that we were, and it's cool to say I didn't have anything to do with it, but it would be not also nice to not be, as I would say, anti-Semitic to black people,
Right.
and deny that horrible things like what you just described, is that even in our separation and not being around them, being in a little hole of a wall place and establishing the most we could, once they heard that we had something going on, they've made up excuses
Right.
to come and pillage, destroy,
Yes.
rape, kill, burn, slaughter the whole little town of people who was living and striving the alleged manifest destiny of the American dream
Right.
that
Right.
they promoted. So it
Right.
is. Listen, if someone is not getting upset, if their blood is not getting warm when you start to see these kind of things happening,
Mm-hmm.
then you are asleep.
Yeah. And,
You-
and and let me take that a step further. When you talk about being asleep, let's just look at the brothers and sisters who are in corporate America. And one of the things is I hear this a lot. Oh, I don't drive my nice car to work because I don't want people to think or know what I got. Or I don't I don't wear my whatever, I don't know what in Stacey Adams is, that's considered a top of the line shoe or whatever, because they're gonna say, oh, we paying him or her too much. Or I don't wear my shirts or blouses that are custom made because somebody's going to come. And I'm like, what the hell? You know what? If you have that, and see, it's that system. I don't want people to know where I live. I don't want people to know what I drive. I don't want, they're going to talk about you anyway. And I can recall at one point, I had some my wedding ring, and I had on my diamond earrings, and the guy that was my boss said to me, "Oh wow, looks like we're paying you too much." And I'm thinking, paying me too much. And by the way, what he didn't know is that I knew that I was being paid $30,000 less
Yes.
what everybody else was paying, but HR made a mistake and I got access to those documents. So I'm just saying that, when you see that, and I'm trying to figure out, we're still trying to hide and tiptoe and don't want folks to come to your house because you in your mind feel that you shouldn't have nice things, that your kids shouldn't go to nice schools, that you're not supposed to drive nice cars. And I'm like, when and where does it end? Where does it stop? because we continue to perpetuate that myth. Oh, you can't let folks know what you got. You can't let folks see how well you're doing, and it just it's crazy to me. I'll just say that it's just really crazy.
Well, let's okay. So let's go back and let's go now to you brought up uh, DeSantis and the
Mhm.
idea of that DeSantis is doing what he's blocking these things. Now, let me tell you what DeSantis is doing. It's such a well, how do I say it? Uh, it is a slime ball type of thing to do.
Mhm.
So I hate to bring this guy. I hate to use Donald Trump as the he's the most he's the person that most people know. But
Right,
I don't like to use him, and I'll tell you why. Because Donald Trump was exactly what he was. He was entrepreneur. He was opportunist, right?
right, right.
And an opportunist is different from a person who is a politician who's opportunist.
Mhm.
He was an entertainer opportunist. So some of the stuff you would hope that he would do, I could accept him doing it because I understood that he was an opportunist,
Right,
right?
right.
Everything he did, he didn't care about anything he did. He freed Kodak Black,
Right,
Lil Wayne. See, everything was an opportunist to him because, and it
right.
didn't matter of race or anything because it wasn't about race show things. It was
Mhm.
about me being a narcissist and being opportunist about everything.
Right, right.
That's a big difference. And he set this playbook out for people that we're seeing play out for a large majority of politicians today. Like this guy up in New York who has told nothing but lies about
Right.
his record. Everything about him is a lie and everything.
Right,
He
right,
just
right.
yo, you begin to think about this idea of and no one can question him about it. You know why? Because in America, there's a thing called precedence.
Yes.
And when precedence is set, it's very hard to use because we have the justal branch of government that base everything on precedence. So the
Mhm.
precedence, and I'm not no lawyer, but I watch enough court shows. I watch enough court, not court shows, because it's different between court show and real court.
Work.
There's
Mhm.
enough to know that the precedence of things is what really causes the issue. So we have a precedence that was set from
Yes.
President President Trump, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But but again, if you know history, President Trump is not the worst character we had. We had a president who brought a filming of the Brave New World and had the Ku Klux Klan walking in the White House up in there. So when you sit here and say, but guess what? That goes back to why Ron DeSantis and
Mhm.
the critical race theorists, deniers don't want this to be known
Right.
because they would then have to acknowledge. And let me just tell you, and I'm just saying to you as I'm saying this, I thought about it. I meant to tell you this earlier. So
Okay.
for alleged Black History Month, what I'm doing is I'm only sharing every Monday. I'm sharing pictures of Black history,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
not the traditional Black history pictures. And in the title it says, "Remember, this is Black History too."
Yeah. Yeah.
My first series of pictures was people holding up signs saying the N word, Confederate flags, if monkeys is dead, all of these things
Right.
because these are listen. What's the Jimmy Jones
Mhm.
caught in that picture where you see the people was harassing the black patron at the restaurant, the black person trying to get in there, and no one had anything to say. It was like, oh well, you have black people coming to his defense and saying, oh, he was just standing there watching. And this is where we get to the idea of this is why the people don't want the critical race theory stuff to come about, because then every one of the people will start seeing their grandmas, their granddads, their great great
That's
grandmothers
right.
in
That's right.
these photos and in these things and learn that your people was very anti-Semitic to black people in a country where they said that was about freedom, liberty, and justice for all.
Right. Right.
That's very hard.
Yeah, and the one thing, in fact, I shared earlier with the viewers, the one of the things as I was saying you were going to be joining us, and I saw one of the pictures where the white guys are holding the rebel flag, and then it says basically that sign that said, basically you need to annihilate,
Hey,
all the
if you want to solve the problem, annihilate
right.
the
Yeah.
N words, right?
Solve the problem. Get rid of them. And so it's those people that are walking around with that thought in their head. And that's why for me, I just think that we need to address it. And it's not about and people can call me whatever. It doesn't matter because the attitude is I know. And
Why does it
coming
matter? Let me tell you something, baby.
what?
They can call you. They already call. Listen, why do any black people concerned about when somebody call? They already call. Listen,
They are, of
if
course.
you watch the local news,
Yeah.
every day the local news say that we are beasts and animals who kill each other. So
Right.
why would you ever care at any point what anybody is saying about you? Because
Right.
guess what? They already say it.
Right. But here's the thing, it
Mhm.
comes back to a lot of blacks still wanting to belong, right? I mean, look at the chick in Florida black chick that supported Ron DeSantis and was talking about there's no need to have this type of learning, even on a college level. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wait a minute. She sure enough didn't. Somebody revoked her black card because the fact that, and she had the nerve to say that she had a degree, she was a professor in history and a law. She had a law degree, and I don't care how many degrees you got. The reality of it is, you got to where you are because your grandmother and great grandfathers were beaten, and they did the things necessary to allow you to live and to come through this. That, again, is my opinion. But the reality of it is, we're talking about the fact that the real pandemic is racism. And until we as a race of people stand up and demand and quit looking for the handouts, because I don't need no little handout. If you're going to hand me out something, you need to hand me out some millions of dollars, billions of dollars. I'm just saying, because I can't do jack with a couple of thousand, okay? And so those are the things that we need to think about and understand. Now, I also want to just underscore something. One of the things, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. But first, I just really want, again, I want to underscore, I reminded people about the Ahmaud Arbery, Kyle Rittenhouse, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Dante Wright, and then, our most recent, the murder in Memphis, Tennessee, of this young man. It blows my mind. And so, what we're seeing and what's happening, unacceptable. And anybody who forgot or who forgets, you know what, those same beatings that you see is the same things that my foremothers and forefathers went through and they dealt with, beat you down into submission. So, remember the movie Roots? It used to show that a lot. Kunta Kinte, he wasn't gonna bear down, and in the end, what did they do? They beat him into submission.
Mission.
And so, understanding, and when they show that, I'm like, I don't need to see that. At this point in time, you guys have technology, you know what's going on. It's time to stand up. It's time to say no more, no more. And here's the question I want to ask you. When you see white people, I always like to ask this question: how many black friends do you have? I'm talking about black friends. I'm talking about black friends that's been in your house, used your toilets, ate your food, drank your wine, and I find that people struggle. Sally has been. That's, you're talking one person, but black people, on the other hand, when you ask them how many white friends they have, oh, they start naming them off. Oh yeah, we've been to games together. They've been to my house. Their kids have spent the night at my house. We and you see where I'm going with this.
Because I think they have to. They're in that population where they they what do you call it? they have to be friends with white people because they would not be able to feel um, what's that word I'm looking for? They need the validation.
Nation.
Validation. They need the validation that they
Mhm.
are that they're okay to be who they want to be, and that for me is a big problem because what you do find is I do I look all the time and say someone that says, hey, do I think people ask me and they ask me, do I have any white friends? And I say, I probably not. I mean, to be honest, because I'm too busy in black stuff to get to white friends. And somebody asked me, what do I mean by that? So if you grow up if you grow up in certain environments, right?
Right. Right.
From the time that you grow up, your initial growing up, and if you grew up in the hood, the only white people you really seen was maybe because I even in my instance that I don't remember seeing white police officers or white teachers too
Mhm.
much initially, but then later on when I moved to integrated type places, and here go the problem, integrated type places, then I seen all of that, and that's when everything switched around for you, and then you find yourself losing some of your self-esteem and some of your self-worth because now you're in a place with people who are treated higher
Right.
and better than you.
Right.
And
And your ideas, your values, what you bring to the table is swept aside. In many cases, I see it over and over when I have people that come to me and I'm coaching them in career. And one of the things is, how do I navigate, you know, working in this environment and to be respected and to be heard?
mm-hmm,
And that's something that's real, and I understand that they need to provide, they got to take care of their kids, they've got to take care of their families, but at the same time, how do you set that tone? We don't make jokes about welfare moms. We don't make jokes about the fact that, oh, they daddy, she probably got 10 kids with 10 different baby daddies. You know what I'm
mm-hmm,
saying? And you've heard it. I see that. And the thing is, let's talk about the real work that is being done here by this black person. What are they really doing? They're showing up, they're coming to work despite all of the other challenges that they may have, which I think so many, of their white colleagues have no clue what they're working with, what they're dealing with. So it brings me back to, this is why we need to have a discussion with you and others that talk about what the real pandemic is. And I want to say kudos to you for making sure that every week you are highlighting, you know, things that actually have happened. I loved your caption. This is Black History too. And I would say, leave it to run. That's right. And that's the thing. And I know that we are past our time, and I know that you only had a little bit of time to get on here. I'm so glad that you did. But I want to invite you back, and maybe we can do a kind of a weekend where we do a panel. I've been approached about having you do a panel, and
mm-hmm.
have several others on the panel, and I would love to be able to do that. So look, I'm putting it out there in the universe because it's being aired everywhere.
Well, you know what? Let me say this. Let me tell you this. I don't know what you're doing tomorrow night. We know we have if you want to see how we kind of do a little bit of the work how we do over here on the East Coast. Um,
Okay.
we have our show we used to have a show called Colored Only Cafe, and it was on Monday nights, right?
Hmm.
Now the show has moved. We moved the show to Wednesday night, and now
Okay.
it's no longer just me and the host, me and the co-host. Now we have brought this whole band of people on, what have you. And so, as I said, I wanted to get you to come on that show,
Yes.
but I want you to have. I want to be able to get you when you got something that you actually share with our audience and whatever it is, or just come on and just come on and do your thing. Um, because right at this, what I'm realizing is to give you an opportunity to see how what we're talking about. The reason why you probably looking at me and say, "Wow, he come on here strong with this." Well, this is what we was doing every Monday night, and we do it every Wednesday night now. And it's not just we got guys on there like Brother Pete, ex Black, not. I was about to say ex Black Panther, but he explained to us one day there's no such thing as an ex Black Panther. So Pete, who's a Black Panther, we have Annette who does she does what I would say really a lot of what she does is beauty pageant stuff, Black beautiful women beauty pageant stuff. So we got that powerful understand. We have Sean who does a lot of he does a good word of the day, and then Reverend Doctor, they call him Reverend Doctor Devin Miller, who is a international relationship counselor who does that kind of stuff. So you had that whole group of people, and then we got this one guy. He's called Bigfoot. He's in the woods. He's like our local. He is our own personal troll. So if somebody wanted to come and try to troll us and do whatever, they got to wait in line because he'll be doing it. he was, you can have people that come and try to boom into your Zoom meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they would hate to do it because he's with us, but
right.
He's
I feel you. So Wednesday nights at what time?
It's at 9:00 at night, so it would be
that's Eastern time.
Yeah,
so
9:00 Eastern is from 9 to 11.
Oh, okay, got it. So that's Eastern Standard Time. All right. So here's the thing. I want to end, and I thank all you guys for hanging in here. But Ron, what is it that you want to leave people with? I usually say, what do you want people to take away from today's show? But what do you want to leave people with?
And I think this is probably one of the biggest things that, as a mentor, as an educator, and as a therapist, that I think that no matter what happens, when I come in contact with people, and if they get tired of hearing me talk, I would say the only way you can love yourself is to know yourself. And that sounds very therapeutic, right? And you got to know yourself. But a part of that for us as Black people is also knowing where we come from, what we've been through, and where we are today. Right. And that's so much important part because we sometimes neglect that. We neglect where we came from. And so many people believe that we came from Plymouth Rock. No, my friend, the world history is way before 1700s. We created civilization in Africa. And if you don't believe it, I know they show you. And here's again, this is mine. So I that's what I leave. Learn about who you are, and not who we are, but who you. Once you learn who you are, you know who we are. You know our greatness as Black people, and not let someone else dictate and tell you what our greatness is and how we are, how we should live and what we are. And that's the biggest thing I think people to take away. Go and get one book. I'll tell you the first book I read at such a young age. I think I was literally in middle school when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. And I read it, and reading it, it changed my whole and from reading that book, and I didn't want to read books. I didn't like books, none of that. But after reading that book and realize that you can be contradictory.
Right.
You have to be one way. And who you are yesterday doesn't determine who you are today. And one of the big things that we face as a people is looking at our facing ourselves. It's who we was. And it's okay to face who we are because both of them is making the person we are then, the person we are now is making who we'll be in the future.
Right. That's true. Well, Ron, no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, that's it. I mean, I'm just think, that's all I'm saying. Listen, that old thing. Read a book.
Read a book.
Read a book about us.
All
Even if
right.
you say I gotta read the Bible, read the book, read
Read
the
the
Bible,
book.
and then color in all the people black, and you'll be better.
Okay. Well, Ron, don't you go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. I'm gonna come right back to you. Okay. So
Okay.
don't go anywhere. All right. I want to say to all of you guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the show tonight. I hope that there's been something that has enlightened you. And as I always say, if you didn't take anything away from today's show, then it's you who didn't get the memo for sure. But I'm Gloria Bailey Ray, your host. I want to invite you to like, share, follow me on all my social media pages. And then until this time, next week, just know that whatever you do, to go out, to be kind, to pay it forward, and to give thanks for everything that you have because someone paved the way for you. I'm Gloria Bailey.